Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Devin Sears. I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Arun Shenoy, and today we are talking about automating WordPress and how to streamline workflow and enhance productivity. If you've built a website and if you run a small business or if you run an e-commerce store, then surely there's some tasks that feel like they're a little bit repetitive and a little bit mundane. And so today we want to talk about how you can streamline some of your workflows and how you can enhance productivity by automating some of those tasks. So before we get too deep into that, let's go into introductions. As I mentioned, my name is Devin Sears. I'm the Senior Field Marketing Manager here at Bluehost. Arun Shenoy is joining us today. He is our software engineer. He focuses on implementing solutions and products on the back end of WordPress and in the WP admin. Arun, I'll let you give yourself a little bit more of an introduction in just a second, but he focuses a lot on bringing useful solutions to our customers on Bluehost. And so he lives and breathes automating and making sure that all the systems and solutions that we have make sense and are working well. So we're thrilled to have him join us today. Before we get too much into the content, though, I do want to touch on one or two quick housekeeping items. The first one is if you can hear us, find the chat box and tell us where you're tuning in from. One, we love to hear where everyone is joining us from. And two, it lets us know that our audio is transmitting successfully and that we can continue with the content. If you found the chat box, thank you so much for dropping that in there. And you can ask questions throughout the webinar. We want to make sure that this is educational and informative for you. So please don't hesitate to drop any questions that you might have. There is a dedicated Q&A tab. And if you find that and ask questions in there, then we can give a little bit more of a longer response. So if we have if we have a question that we think is going to require a longer answer, I might move it into the Q&A tab. So I'm not deleting any questions. I might just be relocating them. I will answer one or two questions now that always come up. One, we are recording this and we will send out the recording within 24 to 48 hours after the webinar. All you need to do to receive the recording is register. And if you're here, you've already done that step. So we will be sending out the recording to everyone that is here today. If you have any issues that are on the technological side, try just refreshing the screen and rejoining the webinar. That fixes 90% of the issues that come up. And if you're still having issues after that, just let me know in the chat. I am actually going to be turning my camera off so I can focus on responding to any chats and questions that come up. I don't want that to be distracting as I'm looking at a different screen, but we will have a Q&A section at the end where I will choose some of the questions that might come up throughout today's webinar and hold them for the end if I think they'll be helpful for everyone that's tuning in. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you all for participating. Arun, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend. So if you want to give yourself a brief introduction and then jump into it, that'll be great. And I'll see you all at the Q&A.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. I'm super excited to be here today, share some of my knowledge on automating WordPress. A warm welcome to everybody who's tuned in. I'm currently speaking from Bangalore, India. Like Devin mentioned, I kind of build solutions in the WordPress admin that simplify the entire website creation process, use automation whenever I can. So I'm a bit well versed in that. So some things that we'll be covering today, let's just take a look at it on a high level. We start with the basics and understand what automation is and what streamlining is. We'll also take a look at why you can embrace automation for your WordPress websites. Then once we know the what and the why, we kind of look at some of the common tasks that can be automated in your WordPress website that you might have missed out on. Once you understand what the common tasks are, we'll take a look at different automation plugins and tools that you can use, which basically define the how. So the first four kind of cover the what, why, and the how. Finally, we'll take a look at non-common tasks because every WordPress website is unique and gives you your small website, small space on the internet. So we'll take a look at how you can, in general, leverage automation for growth. I want to leave you guys with 3 steps that you can always follow to ensure that automation is efficient on your website. Moving forward, let's start with the basic. What is automation, right? What is streamlining? So let's take a very simple example that all of you attending this webinar on this beautiful day might relate to. You likely heard about this webinar on social media, maybe through some of our newsletters. Some of you might have stumbled across it on our website. You decided that, hey, this might be a valuable experience for me. I'm exploring WordPress, or maybe I can learn something here. So you filled out a form to confirm your participation, hit submit on that one. And shortly after, you kind of might have received an email asking you to add that to your calendar. Now, maybe some of you might have done that. Some of you might have skipped it. If you did this a couple of weeks ago, you might have even forgotten about it, right? One day before this webinar, you might have received another email that says, hey, you've signed up for this webinar and it's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe you got one more email 30 minutes before. You see how automation kind of did all of this? All you basically had to do was make that initial decision to attend this webinar, right? And everything else was then basically taken care of for you. So this is basically precisely the goal of automation. You make the key decisions and you let the system handle all the mundane things that you do not want to keep doing again and again. So the most important thing with automation is that it saves you a lot of time. Time is precious, life is short. So you want to save time on whatever you can. It is also not good to spend time on things that are repetitive, because that does not leave space for you to focus on your business ideas or implementing creative things. So always leverage technology to execute tasks that require minimum decisions. For a WordPress website, that would basically mean automating some things that happen on your website, like for example, the email messaging that you kept getting for this webinar. Always maintain some kind of simplicity in your process. Maintaining simplicity will allow you to leverage automation for your website. If you go into making things too complex, then you will end up introducing a lot of edge cases that cannot be automated. Moving forward, let's understand what streamlining is. So we kind of know what automation is. So streamlining basically means simplifying your processes. Let's say you want to achieve a goal on your website, that is to schedule content. You might install a plugin. You might know about the inbuilt tool that's available to schedule your posts. Which one do you think would be simpler? Do you want to really install an additional plugin without knowing that there's an inbuilt functionality to do this? So that's where streamlining comes into the picture. You really want to keep things simple, keep things minimum. Once you keep things simple, it's very easy to automate things on your website. Now, this might be a bit confusing, streamlining and automation. Streamlining basically allows automation on your website. So just to understand this, right, let's take an example. Let's say that I run a content heavy website, which means I maybe write about recipes every single day. And that's my goal, to write about recipes every single day. And what I want to do is, every time I write about this, I want to ensure that I'm posting it across Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, the problem that I have here is that I'm writing a lot of these things and I want to stay focused on generating or writing my content. If I were to take it as an example, let's say I was writing a blog for pizza today. I write the entire blog out, I hit publish, I take that link, maybe take the featured image and put that out on social media. So that would involve logging into it, using the forms that are there on there, and then pasting that link or that image and posting it. What if we were to automate this, right? So the workflow or the process is something along these lines. You write out the blog post, you hit on submit, the blog post goes out on your website, and then you're taking that and then pasting it onto social media. So the first thing you can do to streamline this is define a template. Let's say you have one template for Twitter, one template for Instagram, and you can do that using the block editor. Once you kind of have predefined templates, you can use something like a Jetpack social feature to kind of automate this entire thing. So that would involve connecting your website to the social media platform, and then it would automatically listen to publishers on your website and publish that. So that's where you want to streamline. So we kind of started with manually pasting our links into social platforms, and then moved on to using automation and creating templates. So that's just an example of how streamlining and automation work. Now that we understand what they are, let's see why you should embrace automation for your website. So like I mentioned earlier, the primary goal of automation is to save you a lot of time, save you a lot of energy into tasks that are just repetitive or require very less decisions. This kind of frees you up to focus on what you want to do, focus on your business growth, focus on your business strategies. The second benefit is that you will spend an initial amount of time setting up automation on your website. You might have to go through some complexities, you might have to spend some time understanding what's happening. But then ultimately, since it's streamlined and you have things that are being done automatically at a much faster pace than you could ever do manually, your website loads much faster. It is because of that you have better SEO rankings. Scaling your website becomes manageable because you do not have to compromise on things. The system's doing all these tasks. Nothing's going to overload your website. Moving forward, you can also automate some security on your website. It's a tedious task to keep track of what is being uploaded on your site, the kind of things that are being downloaded by different plugins. Plugins kind of tend to hit APIs and kind of cache things in the DB, kind of download files, all of these things. So automating that will allow you to run regular security scans. You don't have to keep visiting your WordPress website and then going into the file system, checking the database, all of these things. And all of these will be up to date with all of these plugins stay up to date, or tools stay up to date with the latest data breaches and potential risks. Moving on, you can also enhance your user engagement. There's two ways you can do that. The first thing is that you can collect real-time data on how users are interacting with your WordPress website. So let's say you have Google Analytics and you can integrate that with your site. And what you can also do is you can automate your content publishing using the scheduling mechanism in WordPress core. This way users know when you can get content. So there's two ways you can drive this. One is collect the data and then change your content to match how they're interacting with your content. And maintaining consistency in posting your content will encourage visits, because users might be, hey, he might be posting today, so let me just go check out if that content's already there. The next thing we'll take a look at is how you need to implement data safety and recovery. So you do not want to go into your file system, copy paste that, or maybe do an file transfer to some other server. What you want to do is you want to set up automated backups on your site. This way, every time, every 2 days or every 4 days, or that customizable thing you can set up on your website, and that will allow you to back up your website. So let's say someone decided to attack your website or there are technical difficulties, you can just click a button and then restore your entire website. The next thing comes along the lines of streamlining. So what you can do is using templates, parts, patterns, and all the new WordPress block, and using the new WordPress block editor, you can kind of define a brand on your website and maintain a cohesiveness. We'll take a look at how that kind of happens, but then streamlining your workflow will allow you to maintain consistency and branding, give a professional look to your feel, and that also builds trust with your audience. So now that we have a good understanding of what automation and streamlining is and why you should embrace that, Let's take a look at some of the common tasks that can be automated on your WordPress website. The first thing is, like I mentioned, you want to stay consistent with your publishing, especially if you're on a blogging platform or you're writing some blogs about different things. You can also leverage templates, paths, and patterns to streamline your content, give a cohesive look for some of these things. We'll take a look at how exactly you can do that in some time, but that's one area that you can automate. The second thing is to implement automated backups. You can use different plugins to ensure that your data has been backed up to servers that are not hosted on your website. This can be Google Drive. This can be some other platform where you can store it safely. You can also store that offline. This ensures that you can minimize your downtime. So to put it into perspective, right? Let's say you are running a e-commerce website. You have some product information, you're storing some customer orders, maybe you have some customer information as well. So everything's going good, business is good, the money's flowing in, you are very happy until someone decides one day to just ruin your website along with 100 other ones. So these can be either attacks or they can be technical issues. In this example, a failure to have a backup of your website and restoring it immediately can cause significant damage. These can be financial losses. These can be damage to your reputation. These can also be legal issues if you're storing customer data and they are made public by any chance. Moving on, if you're running an e-commerce website again or any kind of blogging platform, it's always good to keep your customers or your users updated with the content. So what you can do is you can leverage automation. I think we talked about social media some time back. You can also do email marketing. This allows you to schedule posts, schedule emails, send targeted emails to your subscribers who have subscribed through a form. You can also set up automated segments, email sequences, and deliver personalized content. So again, as an e-commerce website, I'm maybe running regular promotions, discounts, seasonal sales. Someone maybe added a product to their cart and then just left it there. So there are tools and plugins that allow you to monitor these things, that allow you to manage these things. Using email, automating email marketing will basically allow you to keep your audience informed, tailor messages specific to audience like the cart example I told you about, and recover potentially lost sales. This makes this a crucial aspect of your WordPress website strategy. Moving on, this might be very important for you if you're planning on writing out articles or blogs. Let's say, for example, you're a blogger, you woke up today with a positive mindset and decided, I want to write this blog out today and I'm feeling good about it. So you spend some time, write out your blog and then hit publish. Now you're done for the day. You're kind of tracking how it's being viewed. You are getting good traction. The dopamine's kicking in. You're feeling good. People are adding good comments on your post. Everything's good, right? And then you decide that, hey, this is going to be a good day. I'm kind of feeling that I might need to get a massage at a spa because I'm feeling good about myself. You start going towards the spa and then you pick up your phone to get some more of that dopamine hit. Then you see something like this. ABCDEFGGHH has commented, get 100 Bitcoins, visit this website. Now you're like, hey, this is weird. I need to delete this one, right? You go there and then you delete the comment. You refresh the page only to find that there are 100 more comments there. You refresh the page again. Now there are 1,000 more comments. And they all say the same thing, get 100 Bitcoins. You visit the site and it's basically a scam. And now you're getting comments beyond the point at which you can delete them manually. This is where you need to automate spam protection. You need to use tools and plugins that automatically filter out spam comments. People might abuse forms on your website. They might try to log in into your website. And this can impact your overall user performance and your overall SEO ranking. Moving on, like we talked about, you can implement security scans and alerts. You can automate there are tools that are available that automate all of this. They run scans on a regular basis. You can run scans manually. They go through you can select what you want to scan. You can scan your file system, you can scan your database, and it will report any malicious activities, outdated software, all of these things. You can also automate some of your SEO indexing and structured data on your website. So let's say that you are writing posts or you are creating content on a regular basis, and you do not want to stay up to date with what the search engine factors are. You can install plugins that automate SEO on your website. So these plugins analyze the content, analyze the data on your website. They are up to date with all the search engine trends, and they can provide you with insights, and they can provide you with actionable recommendations that ensure that your content is well optimized. Moving on, the last thing that is very important for any business is to collect data continuously. You want to track how users are behaving with particular sections of your site, maybe with particular pages on your site, click-throughs on CTAs, and all of these things in real time. You do not want to put out a form and then ask a user, what did you click on? So you can automate that as well. There are many tools that kind of come with this, and sending this data to an analytics platform like Google Analytics will provide you a comprehensive view of what you need to improve or what is wrong with your website. Now that we have a good grasp on the common tasks, let's take a look at some tools and plugins that you can use on your website to achieve this. So the first and the most basic one is to use the inbuilt post and page scheduling. So what you can do is you go into the post editor here. I have a post written out for this webinar. I click the settings sidebar, click on post, and I can choose to schedule this post at a time that would most impact my users. So as an example, let's say I'm writing this content for a client in the US. I do not want to publish it at a time that's convenient for me in India, because that would probably be midnight in the US. I want to ensure that this post delivers its maximum impact. So what I can do is I can schedule the post here, and then I can move on to playing video games the whole night. And this will ensure that my post goes out at the right time. The second thing that you can do, the second tool we'll basically look at is JetPack. JetPack has a number of things that comes within it. They've recently made changes to ensure that you can enable and disable features as well in their plugin. So let's take a look at what you can do here, right? I've set up the JetPack plugin on this site, and you can already see that it started to monitor stats on my website. It's a 7-day highlight. I don't have any views because this is a new site right now, but then you can see that there is a lot of data that it automatically tracks. So you can take a look at who viewed your post, the number of visitors, the likes, the comments, where they're visiting from, all these things. The second thing it allows you to stop comment and form spam. We talked about that example some time back. So activating that will ensure that nobody's adding spam comments or abusing the forms on your website. Moving on, the first example we talked about can be achieved using JetPack. You can connect your WordPress website to all your social media accounts, and this listens to posts or page publishers on your site, and you get to control what goes there. So you can basically link it to your social media account, and once that's done, every time you hit publish on a post, you can choose to share it on social media as well. You do not have to go in, manually log in and then paste in the link, maybe write some content as well. This, along with some of the templates that we will see later on, will allow you to maintain consistency across all your social media posts as well. There are some more things such as backup. It also has scans. You can take a look at some of these as well. This is the free version of the plugin I'm talking about. You get some more things when you go with the premium ones. The next one is for SEO optimization mainly. That's Yoast SEO. Let's take a look at what Yoast can offer us in terms of SEO. So there's two things that I'd like to highlight here. The first thing is when you first install your Yoast SEO, it tries to understand the kind of site that you have. So you can click on Start SEO Data Optimization. And what this does is this looks at your site exactly like how Google would look at it. It understands the indexables on your site, all of these things to ensure that when it is optimizing your site, it is doing it in the best way possible. Once that is done, you can move forward. It asks you a few questions about what your site represents. This is mainly used to generate structured data, which is a way of describing to a search engine how your site or what your site contains. So giving it some of this information will allow it to generate that structured data. You can see that it's telling me that you might want to include this because that will be the most efficient way to do this. So let's add an image that kind of talks about travel. So I've added an image and now I choose to not add some of these other things because they've been auto-filled for me. It asks for some social media accounts so as to better understand your site and add some relevancy to your site as well. I'm just going to add my Facebook account here. Moving forward, you can allow it to track your site data so that it itself optimizes the plugin in order to provide your site with the best SEO optimization that you can have. So this is one aspect of Yoast SEO. Once you have all of this configured, it ensures that it is optimizing your site in the best way possible. The second thing that Yoast can do is in the editor itself. So what it can do is it can give you suggestions on the content that you have typed out. So on the left hand side, you can see I've typed out some content, and on the right side, you can see that it's telling me to optimize some of these things. So the first thing is that there are no outbound links, there are no images, there are no internal links to other pages in my site, and a bunch of other issues, right? And it is divided into different categories. As you can see, the first one was mostly related to SEO. The second one is related to readability, and it's saying that it's pretty good and readable because this might have been AI generated content and you've probably optimized this. Some of the other things you can do is add a schema to better describe what you're typing. This again helps with some of the optimization of your content. The next one is the Bluehost plugin that I'd like to talk about. This one you get with every hosting instance or every WordPress site that you buy on Bluehost. There are a few features with the Bluehost plugin that I find interesting. So you have the Bluehost plugin in your website once you SSO into this. The first thing you'll get is the entire dashboard here. So I'm trying to build an e-commerce website. So it says, congrats on your new store. And it's giving me a bunch of next steps for my store. Add my store info, connect processor. I can also manage some of my hosting account here. Add payment methods. The second thing is, since I'm trying to build an e-commerce website, it has a separate store section that allows me to optimize my products and services. I can add products, import them from a CSV. I can also do some sales and discounts. We'll skip that one. On the performance level, it automates some of your cache mechanisms. You can choose to store only images on your site. You can choose to store your images or your web pages. And finally, you can also select all your assets on the website and they'll be cached for about 8 hours. You can also clear all your caches in case you feel something's not going right. There are some more things here that it automates. So let's say you are not ready to launch your website and you kind of want to put it on a maintenance mode. What it does is it shows a coming soon page to all your visitors when that is checked. So all the visitors on your website will basically see something like, hey, this website is coming soon. The other things that you can enable is you can enable automatic updates to ensure your site is always up to date with all the plugins, WordPress core and themes. There are some other settings as well. They are not exactly related to automation. So let's just move forward. And the last thing I'd like to show you here is that you can create a staging site. So it eliminates all the manual work involved in copy pasting your entire website locally, trying out different things, and then uploading that code back to your site. You can create a staging site, play around with it, and then basically delete it and move that to production. So some other things that I missed out in the video for the Bluehost plugin that I'd like to highlight. This gives you a flow when you first log into your WordPress admin that allows you to simplify your entire website creation process. So it basically asks you a few questions, gives you a few designs, allows you to customize them, recommends a few plugins. And once you're done with this, you have a basic website setup. You probably might have a website that's good enough for your customers. You can then go into the block editor and then customize everything that was built using this flow. Let's say you're in the WordPress admin and you're feeling that it's a bit complex. You can find out how to do things by using the help center. That kind of gives you ways to automate your website. Let's say you're setting up a store and need to do different things. It gives you a way to automate all of your things by using AI. And the last thing it offers is once you kind of complete that flow I was talking about, you have kind of described to us what you're trying to build. It gives you different patterns and templates that streamline your entire workflow. You don't have to sit and define them every single time. You just click on them and we recommend the plugin recommends what is best for you, and you can use that in your site. The last one I'd like to show is how you can integrate analytics, because I talked about collecting data, right? It's very important that you integrate analytics on your website. So let's take a look at the last plugin, that's MonsterInsights. So you will also have this one installed on your Bluehost WordPress website. So let's activate the plugin and it will immediately redirect you to a flow that onboards you on things. Let's launch the wizard. Let's say I'm building a business website. I'm going to connect my MonsterInsights account to an analytics platform. So let's say I have Google Analytics. Select my Google account here. Give it the necessary permissions. And now it will spend some time in making all the necessary requests and finishing the authentication for your website. Let's just move forward. And once that's done, it kind of asks you what exactly you want to track. So the first thing is different events across your website, enhanced link attribution that kind of sees how links work, file download tracking. You can also track affiliate links on your website. You can also control who sees some of these reports, right? By default, it's on the administrator and the editor. You can add some additional features as well. This installs additional plugins on your website. So some of these can be SEO, conversions, form builders, all of these things. And once that's done, all of your analytics are set up. And this again is the free version that I'm using. And once you have analytics set up, you have control over what is being done across your website. And all of this will be going to Google Analytics. So if you go to your analytics dashboard, you can view it there. MonsterInsights also has its own dashboard that allows you to track all of these things. So moving on, I talked about streamlining. So this is very specific to some of the new features in the block editor. Those are templates, template parts, and patterns. So a lot of you might know about this. A lot of you might still be using traditional themes. But I thought I'll highlight this one because it simplifies your designing and your content creation by a lot. So let's take a look at what that is like. So I'm going to enter the block editor. And as soon as I've entered, you get this navigation menu on the left-hand side. It contains all the necessary things that you'll need. If you can't find something, you can just play around, go inside. The first thing are template parts. They kind of represent parts of your template. So you can think of a template as a page on your website. You can think of template parts as parts of that template. These can be headers, these can be sidebars, these can be footers on your website. What you can do is you can create a template as well or create a custom page. I'm just going to create a blank template here. Hit on create. Let's close this one. Let's start from scratch. And now I'm going to add a template part. Let's add the header into this one. So this one kind of defines things that are common across different templates. You typically want to use a template part for things that are common across all your templates. That would basically be the headers and the footers. If you don't like something you see, you can always create a new template part as well. And in a short while, we'll take a look at the advantages of using these template parts. You can see that this content came using patterns, which are nothing but blocks just put together. So I've saved this template. And now if I go and edit my template part, let's say we edit the header here. I'm going to change the site title of this website. Let's say, let's change it to maybe just testing. And now when I save this, this header will be reflected across all my templates. I don't have to manually go into every single template and change this. Since I've used a template part, it automatically reflects across all the pages that were using this template part. So this is a way of streamlining your workflow. Else, if you have 1,000 pages or 1,000 posts, you would not want to go into every single one of them and update this. So this is a very simple example. You will understand the powerfulness. You will understand the power of using template parts, templates, and patterns in building your website once you start using them. Moving forward, now that we understand the what, the why, the common tasks, and how you can achieve some of these common tasks, there are a lot of things you can automate on your website. I covered maybe 4 or 5 of them. We talked about some more before this. But then I do not want to leave you guys with just the common tasks. I want to show you guys 3 steps that you can always follow when you are leveraging automation. And these will help you grow your WordPress website. So the first thing that you want to take a look at is to identify repetitive tasks on your site. So repetitive tasks can basically be time consuming. They are rule based, which means that you can just set a predefined set of rules and then say that that's how it needs to flow. And these kind of tasks require minimal decision making. So these are prime candidates for automation. If you find a task like this on your website, you should note that down first. The second thing is that identifying repetitive tasks will reduce your maintenance effort and reduce human errors, because doing them again and again will introduce errors at some point in your cycle. Now that you have the repetitive tasks identified, you can use plugins or tools to automate them. So the first thing you can do is you can do a Google search maybe, or do an AI search. Describe your repetitive tasks to the search engine, and then move on to the official WordPress plugin repository. Start with there, read the reviews, check the compatibility with your site. Maybe consider premium plugins. Let's say that your website is growing and you feel that the free plugins are not doing their jobs. Consider premium plugins. Always test in a staging environment. Never try out automation on a site that's live. You never know what's going to happen, especially if you're trying out some backups and deleting files or sending out emails. You do not want that going to the wrong people. Finally, when you come to branding and consistency on your website, always use features that we looked at before: patterns, templates, parts, and reusable blocks. The last thing you want to do is you do not want to just leave your site automated. You always want to think of automation as an ongoing process or an improvement rather than a one-time implementation, right? The way you can monitor what the impact of your automation is to define key performance indicators. So key performance indicators are standards that your website has to meet. So this can be for an e-commerce website, this can be the order processing time, the stock updation time, the amount of time it takes to send out an email to a customer. These are the key performance indicators for your automation. Let's say that some tools are not meeting those key performance indicators. You want to ensure that you maybe make some minor adjustments. So the second thing that you always want to do is stay updated with what is happening in technology. Technology is evolving rapidly in this landscape, and tools that you're using today might not really be relevant 1 month down the line or 1 year down the line. So you can stay up to date in different ways. So the first thing is to maybe subscribe the newsletters of the plugins that you're consistently using across your sites. Twitter is a good place to follow because you always get to know some things that are going to go out. Look out for talks at WordCamps, different things like that. So always stay up to date as well so you can make adjustments. So we have the 3 steps. Let's take a look at an example to really understand how we can implement this, right? Let's say we have a WordPress site for a small e-commerce business that has repetitive tasks for it. So these can be managing product inventory, processing customer orders, and handling customer inquiries. So the first step is to identify repetitive tasks. Let's divide them into 2 for now. There's inventory management and then there's order processing. So in inventory management, I have some more repetitive subtasks. Those are updating product stock levels, creating and publishing product listings, managing pricing changes. In order processing, I want to send out order confirmation emails to whoever purchased my product. I want to ensure payment processing is automated. I do not want to manually approve payment orders. I want to update the status as the product is being shipped, or let's say it's reaching different destinations. And finally, I want to notify them about when that order status changes. So these are kind of the repetitive tasks. I would not want to do these manually. So the next thing I want to do is to find plugins and tools for this. The first one is for inventory management. So like I mentioned, right, you have to do your thorough set of research with those 7 or 8 points that we discussed. So what I found was that I can use WooCommerce Stock Manager to manage my product stocks. I can use dynamic pricing in order to ensure that different customers see different pricing based on the analytics data that I got. I can also use product add-ons to add extra services to my products. For order processing, I can use the WooCommerce Order Status Manager that allows me to create, edit, and manage my order statuses better. I can use a payment gateway plugin like PayPal or Stripe to ensure that payments are automated on my website and are following all the standards that are set in a particular country. The third thing is to use the WooCommerce order and shipment tracking. This allows your customers to easily track shipments of your order placed, and it also notifies them. Now that we have the plugins and tools, you do not want to stop there. You always want to, like I mentioned, automation is an ongoing process. You have to monitor impact and make adjustments. The tools and plugins that I found might not be the best ones. So the way I can find out is to always establish key performance indicators. So the first one is the accuracy of stock levels, and the second is low stock notifications. If I find that my key performance indicators are not up to standards, I can always research and find other plugins and experiment with them until I find something that works for me. Something that works for me might not work for you. So it's always good to monitor your impact. For order processing, my key performance indicators would be the order processing time, the confirmation rates, the customer feedback. Let's say that the free version only allows so many things to happen. You can consider switching to a premium version. You can regularly review payment gateways for security and reliability. So this is the third step that comes in our website. So the 3 steps we talked about are very simple. You identify repetitive tasks. You find tools or plugins to automate them. Always experiment on a staging site. Never do that on a production site. And finally, it's an ongoing process. Something that works today might not work tomorrow. and there might be better solutions 1 month or 2 months down the line. So always define your key performance indicators. Always strive to improve your key performance indicators using automation. Always remember that it is good to make informed decisions whenever you're making adjustments. And a large part of making informed decisions is to automate analytics on your site. Automation can take care of all the mundane things on your website, but ultimately you are the key decision maker. And you need to make an informed decision that goes along the lines of giving you a competitive advantage and growing your business. So always look at data, always include analytics. When you're improving your key performance indicators, make informed decisions. Do not read a blog post somewhere or do not read something that you found online and just implement that one. Finally, I'd like to leave you with a quote. Always remember that in the age of automation that we are living in right now, that's just going to blow up with AI that's coming up. The key to efficiency is not doing everything manually. You need to wisely choose when to let technology take the wheel. So you need to be careful. You do not want to over automate your site. That can lead to issues. So you might have seen people using AI in their customer support. And at some point, the customer realizes there's no human touch to this and there's no point of talking here. So you always want to ensure that you wisely choose when you want to let technology to take the wheel and when you want to do things manually. All right, so we are at the end. Tevin, are there any questions in the chat?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arun. That was very helpful. Let me pull up the questions real quick. We've got a couple that came in. I tried to answer a handful as we were going on, but there were some that I thought might be helpful to cover as a larger group. So the first question I have, are there any security concerns associated with using automation in WordPress?
I think that the one thing that I can mention is always research the plugins that you're using. You do not want to install something you do not understand. And then always go through tutorials of the plugins that you're using. Many well-supported plugins have tutorials, they have blog posts. Understand what you're doing. Security always starts with you. And so if you are confident in what you're doing, then you do not leave a back door for someone to get into your site.
Yeah, and I know that Bluehost also has automated updates for a lot of our plans. So I think if you have those and your plugins are well-known plugins and well-maintained plugins, then that significantly minimizes the chances of you having some security breaches, something like that.
Yep.
Okay, next question. What are some common mistakes to avoid when setting up automation for a WooCommerce website? Any common pitfalls that you want to call out?
Okay, so let's say that you have customer support, let's say on your website for your products. You maybe do not want to over automate that one. You might need some support agents for that. A lot of people tend to use AI there. The second thing is to not overdo dynamic pricing. So some people set up dynamic pricing to change based on user behavior, but then you get a lot of people asking, why is this price changing for me? Every time I visit your website, I see a different price. So that's some common things that at least I can think of right now. So you might want to also ensure that what the plugins that you install add value. So WooCommerce itself, you as a plugin, you get to install that one, and then you have extensions for WooCommerce. Always ensure that you're not installing things just because it's part of the ecosystem or something like that. Always ensure that the WooCommerce add-ons that you're adding add value to your products and your services.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And the example that comes to my mind with the dynamic pricing is, I feel like airlines. People have experienced that with airlines, where you know, sometimes people will say, make sure you go to the airline's website in incognito mode so that the price doesn't change on you, and no one likes that experience. So I think that's a really good call out for sure. Another question that someone asked, I think they said they're a blogger or photographer, and they said that one of the tasks that they have a tedious time with is optimizing images. So their question is, how can they automate the process of optimizing images for their WordPress site?
So I think you get a bunch of plugins that's Smush. I think there's Short Pixel, Imagify, that kind of setup automation on your image uploads. You can also bulk optimize some of your images. But ultimately, it boils down to you choosing the right image initially, because you can't just select a JPEG that's 4K and then put it into optimize that for a thumbnail. So you always start with using the right image, and then it makes optimization much simpler using these plugins that I mentioned. The other thing you also want to understand is lossy versus lossless compression. So let's say you are using a lossy compression plugin. What that does is it kind of removes some of the pixels on your image that can cause it to blur out on some screens. That it might look good on your screen, but then someone might be viewing it on a 4K monitor and they're seeing stuff that's blurred. So you might want to use lossless compression, and it always starts with choosing the right image for your site.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. The next question is, are there any limitations to what can be automated in WordPress?
So like I mentioned, if you keep things simple, you break down your complex tasks, you can automate most things. But then let's say you have edge cases, or you have specific cases where you want to make that decision on your own. You do not want to automate some of these things inside WordPress. But then there's no limit per se. The limit is basically on the needs of what you want to do. If you think that it can be done with minimal decision making, go ahead and automate it.
Yeah, I think in metaphors and analogies often, and the metaphor that kind of comes to mind is like introducing smart home tools to your apartment or to where you live. You know, like there's a lot of different things that you can do that are pretty cool with automation and with smart home features, but I think I would say don't go overboard. You know, like
True.
it can be very appealing to say like, hey, I'm going to automate this task because I don't like doing it and it's very repetitive, but I think I would just suggest that you don't go so overboard that you have like 50 different automations that you always have to constantly be checking on.
True.
And getting to the point where you miss something and then you're not sure what part of the chain has broken because you have so many automations that are involved with the website. That actually leads perfectly into the next question, which is how often should I review and update my automation configurations?
Oh, so there's no set limit as such. You can maybe do it quarterly, you can do it monthly. I think what's more important is staying up to date with the plugins that you have on your site. I think I mentioned you subscribe to their newsletters, maybe follow them on Twitter, see what they're doing, follow, or most of these things might be open source. So you can go ahead into GitHub or go into WordPress.org and see what's happening there. So it's good to review it maybe quarterly or monthly, but it's more important to stay up to date with what's happening.
I agree with that completely. And I think I would add to that, if you're like an e-commerce site, maybe reviewing your automations right before a big event, you know, whether that's a Black Friday sale or a holiday sale or something. If you're expecting a large spike in traffic, then I would just run through all of your automations, make sure that everything is working correctly before, because the last thing you want is to find out that something has broken after you've had an increase in visitors and they haven't been able to get what they wanted from your website because of an automation issue. So we have a few more minutes and a few more questions. I'm going to actually advance the slide to an assistance from Bluehost slide. So this is just some additional resources before we get to our final questions. I'm just going to keep this up. We have the professional services, and you can access that by clicking on the blue sticky note that's at the top of the chat that says click here to get help with your website. We also have our help links, and we have a YouTube channel where we post our previous webinars, and we also have our support line. So if you need any additional assistance from Bluehost, or you feel like you didn't get your question answered as much as you'd like in this webinar, feel free to reach out to one of these lines. We do have a few more questions, though, that I want to get through in the remaining minutes that we have. So the next question that I see here is, how do I back up my website automatically, and what are the best practices for website backup?
So I'll start with the best practices, and then I can recommend some plugins that you can use. The first thing is to always have an offline backup, or have a backup that's not on the server where your site is hosted, because a lot of attacks tend to happen on the server level itself, and that kind of impacts a lot of your websites, and it can impact your backup as well. So always store backups on a third-party service, a third-party platform like Drive, Dropbox. Store an offline backup on your local system maybe. So those are kind of the best practices. You can also keep a staging website to ensure that when you're restoring your backup, you're not messing things up on your production website. So you take that backup, put it into a staging site, and then see if everything's working fine, and only then push that to your production site. So some plugins, I think I mentioned JetPack has WordPress for backups. There's Updraft Plus that you can use. All of these allow you to integrate with third-party platforms, do offline backups. So yeah, you can take a look at some of those. Yeah. See what works best for you.
I think those are great solutions. The next question I have here is it possible to integrate custom code or scripts with automation tools in WordPress?
Sure. So what you can basically do is any plugin that's well supported has hooks that you can hook into. So you can write maybe a drop-in, a must-use plugin that's specific to your site, and you can basically hook into that event. So let's say that there's an order processing going on, and you maybe want to get a notification on your phone. Instead of installing another plugin that can do just a simple task for you, you can hook into when that order processing is happening, write your own custom code that notifies your website or that notifies your phone, and then put it into your site as a must use or a drop-in or a custom plugin.
Yeah, I like that. And that's one of the joys of WordPress, right? Is that if you can code it, and if you're familiar and comfortable with writing that code, then it's an open book. There's a lot that you can do in there. But the downside is, in order to customize that, obviously, if you're doing custom code, then it's a little bit more of an advanced move. And so you might need to have a little bit more experience as a developer before you start trying to customize some of those automations. But it is very possible.
True.
It can be done. And I suspect that there's YouTube tutorials out there that walk you through exactly how to do that.
True. And just be careful. If you do not understand what you're doing, please don't do it. Just don't copy paste code from somewhere that says this code is going to send notifications to your phone.
Yeah. I have seen that ChatGPT can now, it will write code sometimes, which is very cool, but also can be a little bit nerve-wracking because it might not give you the cleanest code. And if you don't understand what it's doing, you might just be copying and pasting some malicious code or something right into your website. And the last question that I'd like to finish on today, I know we're pretty much at time here. What is the cost associated with using automation tools and plugins, and are there any free options available?
I think what I always recommend is you start with the free ones, and then you feel around what they can exactly do for you. And if you feel that you can get more revenue or that goes with your business goals, then you can switch to premium plugins. Typically, I think they charge depending on the features that you get from these plugins. The cost varies on that. I don't think if you're buying specific features. So there's two ways you can do this. You can buy the entire premium plugin. There are some plugins that allow you to buy certain features inside of them. So yeah, you can take a look at what works best for you. But then before you make a payment or buy a premium plugin, always ensure that it's going to add value to your business or your site. Else just use the free ones that I showed of some time back.
Awesome. That's great. And I think that brings us to time. So Arun, thank you so much for making the time today to meet with us and to teach us about automation. Super helpful. And if anyone still has additional questions, I will try to get to those as best as we can via email or following up. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And Arun, thank you again for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. And if you have any other topics that you'd like us to see a future webinar on, then also drop those in the chat. We're here to be helpful and informative, and we want to help bring your brand online, whatever that might mean to you. So thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.